Well, it has been a bad week for the Palaszczuk government with the release of the Coldrake report pointing the finger at a dysfunctional bullying public service and exposing the cosy relationship between lobbyists and ministers. Yet the Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, says he's not troubled by the report and that she embraces it. For more, we're joined by our Sky News Queensland Editor Peter Gleeson. Good to see you, Gleeson. So it seems the whole world sees a major problem here except for the Premier.
Well, Kenny, it's been a terrible week for the Premier, and of course today in the Courier Mail, the editorial very clearly says that she's in a fantasy land if she thinks that addressing yesterday's press conference and suggesting that she's not troubled by this report is kosher. I mean, the reality is that Professor Peter Coldrake, who was appointed by the Palaszczuk government, obviously they thought they may have got an easier run. He's identified significant cultural problems within the Queensland Public Service, bullying entrenched. You've got masters who are basically, going hard on their underlings and making sure that certain outcomes are produced so that they can then go to ministers and say, well, here it is, here's what you were after. But the real problem here is, Kenny, that you've also got this relationship, the cosy relationship between lobbyists and, of course, ministers and ministers' staffs. And the Premier yesterday came out and said she was not troubled by it. She said it was a health check. And I think in many ways that is symbolic of how this government has performed over the past 3 to 5 years. And that is that they are quite happy to come out and commission an inquiry to try and put it on the back burner, take it off the front pages of the newspapers. But when they are given the frank and full truth as to what's going on within the Queensland Public Service and problems with dysfunctionality in relation to lobbyists, they're not prepared to take the big calls. There should have been a commission of inquiry. There's no doubt that Coldrake squibbed on that. And a commission of inquiry would have got to the bottom of these relationships between lobbyists and ministerial officers. So for the Premier to come out yesterday and suggest that nothing to see here, I think it really does place into full light the fact that right now she's under tremendous pressure after problems with ramping in the health system. She's got issues with the juvenile justice system, and now, of course, the Coldrake report.
And political pressure as well. We had the Queensland opposition leader David Christodoulou on Sky News last hour and says Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk's response to the Coldrake report is insufficient. And he also says her government's integrity issues start from the top and says a Royal Commission is the only way to address it. Let's hear a bit more from that.
The Premier can mouth the words that she's willing to implement it all she likes. We've now seen in the last 3 days a multitude of opportunities she's had to show that she's changed and show that she's willing to drive cultural change, and yet she's squibbed it. Let me give you an example. The report focuses very heavily on commercial incompetence and using it as a shield for transparency. I asked the Premier 3 days ago, well, what does Wellcamp cost? We are leasing a facility that's got no one in there for quarantining. We're paying hundreds of millions of dollars and we don't even own it. Now, a good government that's listened would come out and say, here it is. Today, we have an assistant minister who's basically said that the people who have made the submissions are being political and that he wants to know who they are. Well, again, I've put the call out. Will he be sacked as an assistant minister? Clearly, they don't grasp the magnitude of this. This is a culturally rotten government. There is an integrity inferno burning through them, and nothing short of a full-blown Royal Commission will fix it.
So, Gleeson, we got those transparency issues that came out in that integrity report. No one losing their job. It seems like maybe he's right. We should have a Royal Commission. What are your thoughts?
Well, Kenny, there's no doubt that we need a Royal Commission. I mean, we had a Royal Commission into the Fitzgerald inquiry when back 30 years ago, and I've said repeatedly, consistently, both on Sky News and in the newspapers, that this government, the sophistication and level of obfuscation and secrecy we haven't seen since Fitzgerald's inquiry into the Bjelke-Petersen government back in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, this is a government that's under enormous pressure. And I think what this report has shown, Kenny, quite clearly is the press gallery have known about the way in which this government operates, the secrecy, the way in which they stymie RTIs, the way in which ministerial officers, fashion. I mean, the great example was this week We've had, we've had a big week with the Coldrake inquiry. We've had the QBCC report. We've had the findings into the Hannah Clark inquiry. The Premier went missing. She went missing for 60 hours. She went and had some root canal or something. She could have at least fronted the cameras and said, yes, we do have a problem. I do apologise for what's going on. But instead we had silence. We had golden silence. And of course, we also saw a flurry of ministers sent around the state to deliver good news, because that's what this government is all about. I think the public are now starting to realise that this government does have integrity issues. And the irony here, Kenny, is that she campaigned in 2015 to beat Campbell Newman off the back of being a transparent and open government. They are exactly the opposite.
Well, now the woman who helped to trigger the Coldrake report is Integrity Commissioner Nicola Stepanov. It's her last day today. What's going on with her department?
Well, sources have told Sky News, Kenny, that there are just 4 part-timers who are in the office of the Integrity Commission right now. Nicola Stepanov leaves today. She is the one, along with Mike Summerhayes, who was the state archivist, who blew the whistle on the integrity problems in this government after her office was raided and a laptop was seized. Today is her last day. She said she'd stay on until the end of the year. They said no thanks because she blew the whistle. Now you've got just 4 part-timers. That's how much the government puts weight on integrity in Queensland. 4 part-timers running the Integrity Commission. The person who blew the whistle on integrity problems leaving today. I mean, seriously, that's an example of what you're dealing with in Queensland right now.
Peter Gleeson, good to chat with you, mate. Thank you. Talk to you again soon.